Hey everyone, it is Mica again, and this week I'm going to walk down the old nostalgia lane, also known as the streets of downtown Sandoria, because I decided to jump onto the Eden private server for Final Fantasy XI and try to recapture those good old glory days. Now, I've had a subscription, an active subscription, almost consistently in Final Fantasy XI since around 2003, 2004-ish. So for a very long time, and over that time there's been an incredible amount of changes, especially since around 2010 when Ibisi was released, which was, in my opinion, when Square Enix was kind of trying to rush us all through Final Fantasy XI, hoping we would move on to Final Fantasy XIV. That worked well. I honestly stopped playing Final Fantasy XI regularly around this time as well, since my link shelf fell apart shortly after Ibisi came out. Everything that we had worked so hard for over the years was just rendered completely useless overnight, and that left a bad taste in a lot of our guild members' mouths, and they just simply quit. I myself even quit and moved on to Final Fantasy XIV, even though I didn't really cancel my sub. I'd still jump in now and then, but I was only one of two out of over 50 active guild members that made the transition. Everybody else just disappeared. But I digress. That whole debacle could be a video in and of itself. So let's get back to Eden. I have never played on a private server before. I actually kind of tend to stay away from them, since in my mind I never really see them as being stable, and they could be perfectly fine. But again, in my mind, I feel that Square Enix could send a cease and desist at any time, or the people who run it could just get bored and shut it down at any time. And I have a hard time putting a lot of work into something that could vanish into the void at any given moment. But I decided to take a chance and rolled me a new char. And honestly, it's not really that new. It's the same face I had before, but he's just so pretty I had to choose him again. And I chose Eden over Nozomi as well because for my research, Eden was not only a growing community, but also truer to the retail version of the game than Nozomi. And for me, that made it just the obvious choice. But when I first logged in, my game crashed and I thought, oh boy, here we go, private server problems. But after I logged back in, it's been nothing but smooth for the most part. One of the first things I noticed, of course, were graphical, because I've been running Windower on the retail version for so long that going back to things like 30 FPS when I first logged in and the comparably short draw distances was jarring. I did do the graphic adjustments according to the sticky post on the Eden's forums, but they still did not come close to Windower's, especially when it came to that draw distance. I'm used to seeing objects rendered on the opposite side of the map, and that just doesn't happen here. I also was able to set the FPS to around 60, but instead of setting it and forgetting it like I do with Windower, I have to reset it every time I log in, which isn't bad. I mean, honestly, it's just a few clicks. I also did have a few problems with NPCs. Some NPCs, one time I'd log in and all of the NPCs would be completely fine, there'd be nothing wrong. But then the next time I would log in, some of the NPCs would just have literally the letters NPC over their head, or treasure casket, or just something weird. And I may just be missing something, but graphically, it's okay. It's just like retail. It's definitely not going to be a deal breaker by any means. I did notice that some of the mobs would only move a couple steps at a time and others would wander around almost nonstop. But other than that, I mean, the server felt incredibly steady. It was like a rock. Outside of that first disconnect, I never lost connection and I never even really had any problems with lag. In fact, I haven't found anything wrong or out of whack with the state of the game as it is on a mechanical and technical level. The community's also been really good from the little bit of interaction I've had and from the shout chat. It's definitely better than the current state of retail, which can get almost embarrassing sometimes. But to be objectively fair, I've also not gotten very far at all. I mean, I'm only level 10 at this point, so I cannot speak for anything endgame related. But let me tell you that even though I'm just level 10, getting to level 10 was a struggle. And I don't mean it was hard, because all I fought from level 1 to 10 were bunnies. And I did that for a reason, which I'll get back to in a moment. But just the tired monotony. It wasn't so bad those first few levels, but it wasn't long until I got to a point where I was getting 25 to 30 experience per kill. And I needed over 2,000 for a level. And you can't group until around level 10, so it was tough because I was all alone and it was boring. It's been over a decade since I've done this, and back then, everything was brand new, so there was a feeling of newness, and I didn't really notice this stuff as much. I didn't know what was behind that hill. I didn't know what higher level content was. I was exploring and seeing everything for the first time. Now, I just want to get through the shit and move on so I can play with others and I can start working on other things. Another issue I ran into is Gil, because Gil is incredibly hard to get. I was going to roll a mage, but after playing Thief to level 10, there was no way I was going to do a mage, and that's purely on a spell scroll basis. This is one of the issues for the private server that I honestly didn't expect. NPC and items, just like in retail, gives you almost nothing, and any drops I could possibly get in the beginning, like crystals and meats and hides, sell for nearly nothing on the auction house. I think my stacks of crystals were selling for less than 200 gil, which is way, way lower than they did in retail when I started. So gearing myself was tough enough. I could not imagine buying spell scrolls on top of that. In fact, Gil is the whole reason I fought rabbits almost exclusively to level 10, since you can take out a repeatable quest that gives you 170 gil for every 3 rabbit hides. And the rabbit hides are not incredibly common either. I think I averaged 1 hide for every 5 dead bunnies. I was in level 1 starter gear throughout almost that entire 10 levels, and it was just so grindy and so boring. Again, I don't know what else to say. Like I said, this wasn't much of an issue in retail back then or at now. I mean, I did have that whole newness thing that kind of blinded me to a lot of issues. But even common items like earth crystals, they just sold for more. I think they really should have adjusted prices, especially of spell scrolls, but also of vendor gear. A private server is going to have a way lower population than retail, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration because starting out on your own, just from a guild standpoint, was horrible. And if you're a mage class, oof, good luck. It was fun, however, to go back and relive the dangerous world that I remember oh so fondly. I rolled a new char in retail recently as well, and the trip to Juneau, the one I'm taking right here, was much easier in the retail version. It kind of feels like perhaps the aggro ranges were reduced in the retail version. I was able to run to Juneau while watching Netflix with ease there, where here I had to stay very aware of my surroundings, and I still died my first couple attempts because I'm just not used to paying that much attention to the world around me anymore. But in my opinion, a dangerous world is always a plus. That's what I prefer, so it's really not a complaint. I actually really enjoyed the fact that I was in danger running to Juneau. There are also so many things that are standard in retail now that I honestly forgot were at one point non-existent, like field tomes or a free Emperor band. I ran straight to the NPC at Westgate and Sandoria to get the quest for that free ring voucher, only to basically have her laugh at me. And that was kind of a bummer because that ring would have been a godsend on that first 10 levels. So now that I'm to this point, I'm level 10, I have, I think, level 7 gear on. The big question will be, am I going to start partying in the dunes? Am I going to keep playing? Honestly, probably not. And for 2 reasons. And has nothing to do with, well, it really has nothing to do with Eden, but the first is really superficial, and that's the reason I brought up, is because, I mean, Eden is a private server. Technically it's great, but it's still a private server. Old school Final Fantasy XI was a huge grind. It could literally take hours of daily gameplay to get anywhere, and the instability of a private server makes that grind feel all that more daunting, because I could lose everything in the blink of an eye much easier than I could in retail. And I just don't think the risk is there. I have so many other games I could spend those hundreds and hundreds of hours playing. And that even ties into my second reason, because again, it's just that grind. I will wax poetic about old school games. If you watch my videos, you will know I wax poetic about old school games because, in my opinion, they were superior to newer games in so many ways. Like the importance of the community, the difficulty, the risk versus reward, the dangerous world. I mean, I could really make a fairly long list, but I just don't want to spend a year sitting with my party flag up just to get to level cap. You can keep and have that old school feel without it being just so dull and so monotonous. I also don't have the oomph to level crafting to get gil, where when getting materials just to level is in of itself a full-time job. Now, I could do this back in the days of retail. I had amazing link shell, and I had more faith that the game wasn't just gonna go offline one morning. And also that thrill of just doing everything for the first time. All those parts of old school games that are bad, that we hated, that are not missed in newer games, were negated by these things. And without them, they seem just so much more worse. It's really just a case of been there, done that, and oof. Do I really want to do it again? I mean, this game has no surprises left for me. I do think that if you're truly looking for a true experience of Final Fantasy XI back in the day, Eden is a good choice for you. Like I said, it's sturdy and the community was super nice, and apparently it's growing at a fairly steady rate. I am disappointed that I'm not having more fun with it, because honestly, I'm not having fun in retail anymore either. But those of you who are out there who are on Eden, am I missing something? Does anything change later? Did the developers of Eden throw us a bone anywhere? Let me know in the comments or on social media, which is linked below, because I would love to spend time in Vana'diel again. I would love to go back to those 75 days when the game was really, really good. But Square Enix did make some quality of life changes for a reason. But that's it. And as per the usual, it's been a hoot. Until next time, have fun.